Hey, we are live from Dream Team Retreat, Thailand 2024, here with the living legend, Jim Francis. We are about to take you behind the scenes and talk about money
mastery.
Money mastery, how to make money, manage money, multiply money. Jim, what is this session all about?
Well, to begin with, it's the big picture of how to make money. So we talk a little bit about what I call the wealth wheel, which is cash flow, growth, big hits, asset protection, taxes. So giving people the big picture of where they need to go. And then later on, we go into a little detail in terms of exact strategies to have more money in your future.
Fantastic. So if you're watching this now and you are someone that wants to have more money, you want to master your money, this is definitely for you. Let's go behind the scenes, grab a pen and paper. We're going to give you some incredible content.
As many of you know that I do a lot of personal development, work, have done some therapy in the past in terms of getting rid of some of the negatives and moving to the positives. But I'm also pretty well known in terms of wealth and strategies. Done 130 plus properties, took a company from 0 to 108 million. I've had all my financial licenses in the past, which means I know a lot about the financial institutions, both here in the UK, but also in the US and Canada as well. I found out when I got all those financial licenses that they don't know anything. Right? So that kind of surprised me a little bit. And I went on a search to kind of learn about trading and things of that nature. So would it be okay if I take off my personal development hat, put on my wealth hat and share with you some strategies? Maybe, 18, 19, 20 strategies that can make a major difference in your life. If you're interested, say, oh yeah. All right, cool. Right, so my pleasure. A lot of this is out of a book that I am writing, called Dare to be Rich. How many people would like to be rich, right? Well, to do that, you need strategies. Whether it's 16 or 18 or 100, and I've got over 400 financial strategies in my head. Now, can I share all 400 with you in the next 75 minutes? Yeah. Yeah, that's getting into the matrix, right? That's where you suck out my brain, right? But I will share with you lots and dozens, and if something stimulates you in terms of, geez, that's an area that I'd really like to explore, come see me privately and I'll spend some time with you, whether that's the coaching this afternoon at lunch or whether it's sometime during the next three or odd days or so. I'm happy to share with them. Now, I usually, when I'm teaching, like to start with kind of the big picture first, right? I consider wealth kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. Right? And with a jigsaw puzzle, do you get into the little detail first, or what's the first thing you do in a jigsaw puzzle? Outside? No, you don't. That's not true. You got to see the picture first, right? You have to know where you're going. So that is really our goal setting, our dreams, and setting, hey, look, at the next 5 or 10 years, this is where I want to be. I want to be at the beach, but I want to have digital assets working for me and a stock trading account that looks after me for the rest of my life, or property, or business that's a black box. Is everybody with me? We need that big picture first, then Calvin, we start with the edges, right? We do with the corners, we do the edges, then what's the next step? Well, we look at the picture and we go, well, here's the colors over here, here's the colors over here, let's stack them all together, right? And then what we start to do is look at the little detail. Now, some of you are what I call a spade personality. Anybody that is, direct driven, I got to get to the result right away and I want to do it in the next 3 minutes, Jim. Anybody like that? Put your hands up nice and high. Come on, guys, I know more of you are that, right? Right? For you guys, you just want to get there. I just want the picture, right? Well, then don't do the jigsaw puzzle, just buy the friggin' picture, right? Buy the result. Does that make sense to everybody, right? Get it done for you. Does that make sense? Right? But for some of us, we need the little pieces over time, right? So when I talk about the puzzle today, in terms of wealth, I'm going to start with the big picture and then get into the little detail. Now, you guys that are more spade driven, you need to stick around to get to the big picture. You need to look at some of the little details, right? So we'll kind of do this over time, right? So I'm going to start with kind of the big picture and then move into some of the little details, right? So number one is, right, we need to make sure we're planning where our dreams are, where our goals are. So in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, where do you want to be financially? Do you want to be financially independent? Do you want to be retired? Where do you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years? And set that as a goal, as an intention, because if you set that as a goal and an intention, you're more likely to get there. Does that make sense? Has anybody read the book 1 Million in 12 Months? Anybody read that book? Really good book. 1 million in 12 months. And the first strategy he talks about is very similar to what I talk about, is you have to set the intention. You have to know what the picture is, where you want to be in 5 or 10 years. Because if you know where the picture is, then you're more likely to take the action that's necessary to adopt the picture. Does that make sense? An example from my own personal life. When I was working in the Fortune 500 company making 60 grand a year, what do you believe my worth as an individual was? What was I worth? 60 grand a year, right? Because that's what I was making. That's what I felt I was worth in the open marketplace. And then Tony Robbins came to me and said, Jim, you're worth $250,000 a year and 2 to 3 million in the next 3 to 5 years. And I, for some reason, believed him, right? So when I believed him, right, because I didn't feel I was getting rewarded enough in the Fortune 500 company, when I believed him, I realized that, geez, I want to make 250 this year, right? Now, if your plan is to make 250, do you have to have a different mindset than the thing that I'm worth 60 grand and I'm looking for a job? And I had to change my actions to match my intention. Does that make sense to everybody? So if you really want that million, you have to set that as the intention first. That has to be the big picture, whether it's 1 million, 7 million, or 100 million, right? And you gotta open that door, go through that door, because that's the only way you find the other doors that will lead you to the path to the millions. Is everybody with me? So have that big picture in your mind. Now, when you think about that, when you think about the big picture, there's actually 6 elements to building wealth, right? And I'm gonna call this the wealth wheel or the wheel of fortune, right? Anybody watch the show The Wheel of Fortune? Right? If you watch The Wheel of Fortune, you can make a little bit of money or a lot of money, right? We wanna make a what? A lot of money, right? So we definitely wanna make this. So what I want you to do is, I want you to find a page in your notes, and I'm gonna give you kind of the big picture first, and then get into some of the little detail with respect to this. So we're gonna draw a circle on our page, and we draw the circle on our page, right? Make it a big circle. And then what I want you to do is to cut it, right, literally into 6 sections. 6 sections, right? 6 sections. This is called the wealth wheel. There's the perfectionist in some of you coming out with the circle, right? We're gonna call this the wheel of fortune or the wealth wheel, right? So the first element, the first part of the pie chart is always me. And what does me stand for? Mentor and education. More importantly, it is me as an asset. If I improve my skill set to become a great speaker, if I improve my skill set to be great in terms of influence, if I improve my skill set in terms of negotiation, the ability to negotiate, then am I worth more in the open marketplace? Yes, will those skills support me on the path to the million to 10 million? Is everybody with me? I know that that's the reason I'm standing in front of you. I know I worked on myself. I worked on my self-talk first, Tony Robbins, right? Social styles as well. I worked on influence second, and I worked on speaking skills third. If you master those 3 skills, then you can control your destiny. No question. Because I know, take away all my wealth, take away the properties done, the business I've done, the working with Adam, the partnerships, those kinds of things. Now, if you take all that away, I can go speak for a living and make what? $250,000 a year guaranteed. Is everybody with me? Right? It died, it's okay. Right, thanks. Right. You know, so we definitely want to make sure we're working on ourselves first. Is everybody with me so far? The second area that we have to work on is called cash flow. Cash flow, right? Now, when I'm talking about cash flow, many people use cash flow as the job. That's one source of income. We need to have more than one source of income. If you how many people are still in the job right now? Put your hands up nice and high, right? If you're still in the job right now, you have to build that second source, that third source of income. One of my mentors was a guy named Robert Allen. He wrote a book, you know, in terms of building wealth, right? And he says you must have 7 sources of income. Did I say 1? No. Did I say 2? No. You have to have 7, and they have to be diversified. Can't just be property, has to be something else as well. Because what happens if the property market all of a sudden goes away? When I use options, I have 10-to-1 leverage. 10-to-1. $1 controls $10. Is everybody with me? Is that pretty good leverage? It is. So guess what I spend the majority of my time trading? Options, right? I can do a little higher risk investing, and I could do futures, and I have done futures in the past. And when I do futures, the leverage is 25-to-1. $1 controls 25, right? I used to do Forex a decade ago, 3.5 years of doing Forex, and when I did Forex, my leverage was 200-to-1, right? Until the US government came in and said that's too much risk for people, and they made it 50-to-1. Some places around the world, you can actually do more than 50-to-1. Right, Calvin? Right? In Dubai, you know, it's outrageous, right? It's 200+-to-1. That means $1 is going to control more cash. Now, make this really clear. If you're doing high leverage, is there more risk? Yes, but if you know the probability of success, you can manage that risk. Does that make sense? Like, I know one strategy. I'm going to tell you what it is. When I tell you what it is, I do not want you to do it yet, right? It's called credit spreads, right? A credit spread is a high-risk strategy, but it has high probability. When I say it has high probability, you literally can make 6, 7, 8% today, right now, this moment in time, 6, 7, 8% a month with a probability of winning 9 times out of 10. Actually, it's 94 out of 100, right? So it's higher than 9 times out of 10. Does that have a high probability of success? Yes. So the big thing is you just got to manage your downside loss in case it goes against you. High probability of winning, just got to make sure you got a nice downside goal in terms of a stop so that you don't lose much. Does that make sense to everybody, right? So big hits, by the way, if you're doing 7% a month, is that a pretty good rate of return? Yeah. Where's my math expert? Charlie? That's 84% a year, right? 84% a year, is that a pretty good rate of return? If you lose, by the way, the 1 time out of 10, you'll make 50 to 60% if you manage it really well. All right, is everybody with me? So is 50 or 60% a year a pretty good rate of return? Is that a pretty big hit over time? If you're doing 50% a year, how long does it take you to double your money? 2 years. Imagine doubling over the next 5 years. Would that be incredible? Calvin, that's one of the reasons you're getting into the stock, right? No question, right? So big hits, you know, it can be the commercial conversion. So we can do it in property. We can do it in the stock market. Can you do it in business? How do you get a big hit in business? So you can buy an underperforming business, put some work into it, then flip it and sell it, right? Can you do that with websites? All right, so I really believe that you should have more than one source of income. So one of the things that I created for myself as an application to this concept was Money Mondays. Money Mondays. So every Monday between 3 and 5 o'clock for literally over 20 plus years, I looked how I could make more money. I looked at other systems, right? So one of the systems I got into decades ago, kind of before it was popular, was domain names. At one point, I had 330 domain names, right? I bought, for example, Financial Success for 30 bucks. Is Financial Success a pretty good name? Would it value over time? Yes, and I sold it for $12,000 3 years later. Is that a pretty good, low entry point, good piece, right? I could have gone to flippa.com, right? And if I go to flippa.com, it flips websites. So literally you can buy an inexpensive website from them or build one yourself and then sell it online to someone else, right? That idea came to me from a guy named Stephen Pierce, right? And it was part of Money Mondays. Every Monday from 3 to 5 o'clock looking for additional income streams. Is everybody with me, right? So one of the Money Mondays was I found out decades ago about something called eBay, right? Back then it was fairly new, right? A friend of mine was actually trading on eBay. He was a property investor. And I said, geez, why are you doing eBay when you're a property investor? And I asked him, what are you doing for cash flow? That was the question I asked him in terms of property. And he said, well, I'm actually doing eBay right now in terms of that. And I said, well, what are you doing on eBay? And does anybody remember the little bears? I can't remember what they were called. Beanie bears, beanie babies, remember that? Right, so he was selling them online. And I'm thinking in my head, you know, he's buying 2 or 3 and selling 2 or 3. What kind of money can he be making? And I said, so, you know, what kind of money are you making on that? He said, well, I'm buying 1,000 at a time. And then I said, well, what do you mean you're buying 1,000? Where are you buying 1,000 Beanie Babies? I said, well, I'm actually buying them from the UK. And I said, well, why are you buying them from the UK? He said, well, the people in the US do not have the UK bears, right? They have the US bears and all the things that, because in different markets, they have different ones. And he was buying 1,000 UK bears at $8 a bear, right? Big volume, right? And he was selling them in the US at anywhere from $60 to $80 a bear, because he was doing them on auctions. Because they weren't popular, or they were popular in the US, he was selling tons of them. And I did the math on that really quick and went, shit, I need to be in this business, right? So immediately that night, right, because I'm a person of action. Does it appear that I wait for stuff? No, I'm gonna go take action. Concept action. So literally that night, I get onto eBay, also get onto the new thing called PayPal, right? And get a PayPal account, get the eBay account. Coincidentally, right, my son walks in. Now, my son now is 31, right? He was 8 at the time, right? I'm looking at bears, right? He walks in and says, Dad, you know, you're on that thing, right, that has stuff for sale. Can we go on the Pokemon thing? So I go on to eBay. Everybody remember the Pokemon craze? I mean, you look at the Pokemon craze, you have to get all the cards, right? Are there certain cards that are more popular and less available than other cards? So Mike, at age 8, says, well, I want to get this card. And I can't remember what it is. Emu or whatever it was, right? You know, so I'm looking at the cards, and the most popular card is the Charizard card. It's the lizard, right? The lizard is the one that's missing from everybody's set. So I find the card he wants, can't remember the name of it, and it's $8, right? So with my new PayPal account, I buy it, right? You know, I buy the card for him because I love him, right? I mean, you gotta look after your kids, don't you? And then I look up here and I see the Charizard card is selling for like $150, $200. So I turn to Mike and say, hey, Mike, you know, why do you want that card when the Charizard card seems to be the most popular? Do you have one of those? And he says, no, I have 3 of them. Ding, ding, ding. Light bulbs going on. So what do you think I turned to Mike and said?
I'll trade you.
Yeah. I'll trade you the $8 one for the other one. Yeah, I could have done the negotiation game, no question, right? But I said, so how would you like to make some money, Mike? Right? It's a good thing to teach your kids about money. It is. He says, what does he think he says? Yeah, for sure, right? So I said, well, let's put this on. So literally, I'm typing. He's telling me about the Charizard card. I'm saying, you know, whatever he's saying to me, I'm putting on the website. I took a picture, put it up there. We posted a 3-day auction, and the first one, he made $161, right? Is that a pretty good thing?
Oh, yeah.
What I forgot to remember was that I said, Mike, what do you want to do with it? And he says, I want to put it into the bank account. And our deal was, for every $1 he puts into the bank account, I got a match, right? So I sold his card for $161 and had to put $132 into the bank account for him. And guess what he did? Hey, let's sell the second one! And literally, over the next year, he sold off all of his cards with me and made $1,200. Which meant that I had to put another $1,200 into his bank account. So when he was age 16, he had $6,000 in his bank account from allowance and from selling Pokemon. Is that a pretty good thing for a kid? It is. By the way, he took that $6,000 at age 16, taught him how to trade, right? And literally he traded in my account for the first 2 years and then his own account from age 18 through 22 and took the $6,000 and turned it into $28,000 while he was at college, part-time. Is it worth you spending some time learning about Money Mondays? Is it worth your time as a map action to say, I need 7 sources of income, let me start looking at what those income sources will be, besides the business. Is everybody with me? Besides the 5 or 6 of you that are working for a living right now. Is this making sense to everybody, right? So in business, big hits, can be building the business, flipping the business. It can be looking for businesses. And certainly in my case, one of the biggest hits of my life was taking my company public, right? When I took my company public in the 2nd year, I had 1 million shares of stock and we came out at $2.25 a share, right? Now I got the shares for free. Was that a pretty good investment? The people who gave me the $1 million, does anybody remember that story? How many people don't know that story about me borrowing $1 million? All right, so in year 1, I did 900 grand, right? And then in year 2, I did not want to work in the business any longer, right? So what did I want to do? I wanted to scale. I did not want to speak. My friend Mo and I were speaking for a living. We did 900 grand the first year, 500,000 in expenses, 400,000 profit. He got 200, I got 200. Pretty good day at the office, would you agree? But I'm working like a dog, right? I'm kind of managing the business and I'm also speaking. And I know that I want to get out of the business. And then I figured, well, what I'll do is I'll hire some speakers. I'll hire some marketing. I saw it, don't worry, right? I'll do all those things. Right? It's, I got you, no problem. I got you back. So I wanted to get out of the business, but I needed $1 million to do it. Guess what I didn't have at the time? $1 million, right? So I did the question you should be asking yourself, which is not I can't. What is the question you should be asking yourself? Yeah, and if you don't get the answer then, what's the second question? Who do I know that could? Find somebody who can, which is what I asked. And I found somebody, his name was Jim Bird, right? And Bird was very common to drop 5 million, 10 million, $1 million, like that in a business, because what he did was buy businesses really cheaply and inexpensively and flip them or take them public, right? Multi-millionaire, beautiful house, by the way, right? So he brought the $1 million into my corporation, and the way he did that was to buy shares, right? So he bought shares in the company at 25 cents a share, right? When we went public at $2.25. So if he bought shares at 25 cents, right, and he bought millions of shares, right, and we came out at $2.25, guess what he did the day we went public? I made $2 million. What do you think he made? Shitload more. Charlie's doing the math. Right? So you can literally take a company public or flip it to make outrageous amounts of money. How many people would like to take their business, build it, get out of it, have a black box, and then sell the black box for $5 million? Yeah. Now, the way you sell the business is either in the public market in terms of shares, or you sell the business based on the cash flow of the business. And the cash flow of the business, net profit, can be 3 to 10 times the cash flow. Minimum of 3, but it can be as high as 10 or higher than that, right? So that can be a great way to exit, and that's a big hit. In fact, when I think about building a business, I'm always thinking about, geez, I'm gonna build a black box, I'm gonna let the black box run for 2 or 3 years, and then what am I gonna do with the black box? Sell it and cash out, because I know I can build another black box, or find a black box, right? So great.
So there we go. Part 1, Money Mastery.
It was incredible, huh?
It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
We really hope that you've got some golden nuggets. Make sure you stay tuned right now because part 2 has just been released.
And that's where we're gonna go into the little detail of the section we just went through. So it's an incredible section.
Fantastic. Watch part 2. We'll see you on the other side.